The neighbouring country, South Sudan, has also faced a severe humanitarian crisis for years. A civil war driven by political reasons and ethnic tensions has left hundreds of thousands dead and pushed civilians into extreme conditions. Well, earlier, UN aid chief Tom Fletcher, who is currently in Sudan's capital, Juba, outlined to me the current humanitarian situation in both South Sudan and Sudan and what's needed to help civilians on the ground.
But you've got so many people on the move, so many people displaced, living on leaves, grandmothers with limbs amputated because they've had bullet wounds to their legs, 18-month-old kids with amputated legs because of bullet injuries. So the needs are immense. We've got to get peace, we've got to get access to these communities, and we've got to get funding for what we're doing.
And how do you do that? Because in a recent interview, you said, one of your main roles is to bear witness, to tell the story that in neighbouring Sudan, the situation there is terrible. How do you get the story from South Sudan out, given what you're seeing right now?
I mean, this is the big challenge, and it's why I'm grateful that you've invited me on to talk about it right now from Juba, because somehow people's attention levels are too short. Our attention spans are too short. This war is hitting so many civilians, and it's absolutely tragic to meet people who've walked for days, grandmothers who've carried children because their own children are dead. They carried their grandchildren to get them to us. And they all ask, is the help coming? Is the help coming? And I can't answer them yes at the moment, because we'll do what we can. We're here on the ground. We've got amazing colleagues doing everything they can with the money that we have. But it's just not enough for the needs that we're facing.
And you have also visited the state of Jonglei, which is experiencing fighting at the moment there in South Sudan. I was just looking on the map at the moment. That's very close to the border in Sudan. How is the spillover from the war in Sudan impacting that area?
So yes, it's up in the northeast of South Sudan, and we crossed the fighting lines in order to get there. And one of the things I'm trying to do while I'm here is open up more of those access routes. If I can get there, then our convoys can get there, and we can follow me in with more food, more medicine, more shelter. But you're right, a lot of this is contagion from across the border, but a lot of it is also conflict generated from within South Sudan itself. It's pre-existing conflict here as well. What that big Sudan crisis is doing to the north is it's bringing more weapons into the whole region, more tension and more regional engagement, not all of it helpful. And so it creates that extra dynamic, but it also creates one more problem that's ahead of South Sudan in the queue. And so one more reason why people won't pay enough attention to what's happening here.
What about the political situation there in South Sudan? There is a fragile peace there, and we know that South Sudan is planning its first general elections this December. It's still far away, but opposition leaders, they remain detained, and millions are displaced in the country. What's your feeling on free and fair elections there, and how could that impact peace?
Things are very, very fragile here. I met this morning with the president, with the vice president, with the minister for foreign affairs and other ministers to stress above all that we need peace. We need a ceasefire. This is what people across the country are crying out for. They updated me on the plans for elections for December. December feels pretty distant right now. And for most people in the country, they're just trying to survive day to day. So the key priority right now is to stabilize the situation, stop an escalation of this conflict, and get us that humanitarian access to people who so badly need it.
Now, you mentioned the word contagion from Sudan into South Sudan, and of course we are now nearing that 3-year anniversary of the war in Sudan. Right now, the RSF controls oil-rich areas, and we know the paramilitary forces are holding the east. Do you think that the conflict is heading towards a permanent partition of Sudan, and what would that mean for Sudan's sovereignty?
I mean, that is a big question right now. There is, of course, a risk of that. The fighting is intense, particularly in the Kordofans right now. I've been into Darfur twice in the last year, including spending a week there a couple of months ago, and the needs there are absolutely immense. I got very close to Al Fasher, which is the epicenter of much of the fighting and much of the brutality in that conflict. We badly need the peace process there to take serious hold. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago with US Special Envoy Boulos and other players who are trying to stabilize the situation, trying to get us humanitarian access, trying to get a humanitarian ceasefire. But the arms keep arriving. And until we stop those arms flows in, and until we fix the politics, Sudan is only going to get worse.
And your groups are there working on the ground, and you've been yourself. What have you seen in Sudan, in all the different areas you've visited?
It's desperate. We've got over 20 million people in need of life-saving support. I met, a mother coming out of Al Fasher who'd carried someone else's child. Her own family had been all killed. She'd managed to scoop up that child, malnourished child, all of whom's family had also been killed, and somehow get him to us. And I was able to hold that child and know that we would be able to save his life. But strangely, he's one of the lucky ones. So many people won't get to us, won't get to that support that's needed. And there's one really, really worrying trend in the midst of all this, and that's the level of sexual violence against women and girls in South Sudan and Sudan, which is just heading upwards as a result of this conflict. Women's bodies are being weaponized, attacks against humanitarians as well. The rule number one in conflict: protect civilians and allow humanitarians to operate safely. And yet, in both Sudan and South Sudan, we're seeing more attacks against us. Just now, literally a few moments ago, I was reading about reports just coming in of an attack against a humanitarian convoy in the Kordofans in Sudan. So our people run real dangers going back towards the war, back towards the conflict in order to save survivors, and they should be protected.